All right, as many of you heard, if you were in here during the break, the printer is very slow. I've asked for 12 copies of a page, and 2 of them are printed out so far, 2 or 3. All right. That said, I've given this shtick before, but I'll try to keep it simple. When they say right here that HTTP is a stateless protocol, that means that basically, for lack of better words, the web is kind of dumb. And it considers each new request coming in to be a brand new separate request, and it really has no idea whether it's coming from the same person or a different person type of an idea, unless you give it that information. This goes with the act of using cookies or using session state. And what I'm telling you right now, we're going to get it into more depth and breadth of coverage later, but I'm being very general, very generic here. But by and large, when you're talking about using session state, you're talking about saving stuff on the server side. When you're talking about using cookies, you're talking about saving things on the client side. That almost always is the way that it is. So what they mention here is, again, stateless protocol. And they're saying that each time the requests come in and go back and a new request comes in, the web page doesn't know necessarily that it's coming in from, it's the same request from the same browser, etc. type of thing. So again, that's why they say HTTP is a stateless protocol and what session state is. This is all on the middle of page 19 in the book. They also talk here about how ASP.NET allows you to maintain state. This is session state. This is not cookies. Everything you see right there is not cookies. You're going to see something in a couple minutes when we start to create this, when we do like a view page source. You're going to see this thing that says view state, and it's going to be this really huge value that's got 30 or 40 characters in it. All right, that's something that ASP.NET does for you automatically. Okay? But you can also set up session state, as it says there, application state, server-side caching, and profiles. These are just ways that you can have the system remember information. All right, that is a way of doing it. All right, what we're going to do then, as soon as this prints out, Travis, maybe I could ask you if you don't mind. I don't know how many are printed out, but if you could grab the ones that have and start passing them out. This is in the book. That's this. This is what we're going to start building. Now think about this. Please take a look up here quick and think about this. There's no database in this app. All right, there's no database. But think about what you see on the screen right here, okay? That's an image. Does that make sense to everybody? That's supposed to be like the Muroc logo. Make sense? All right, there actually is an image control, and that's what we'll use to hold that. All right, this, believe it or not, it's our old friend, the H1 tag. All right, because you could put, you go ahead and put HTML right in your document. It's not a problem. All right, this, you've got your choice when you do this. I just want to explain this to you, okay, just so you hear this. When you set this stuff up, and I'm trying to remember the name. Let me go back to here. Oh, remember when we got into Visual Studio like this and you had to set your type up to be C#? You're going to have to do all that again because you're doing it again. So you're going to have to do that. Okay, just so you're aware of that. But if I come through here, and I'm going to just come through and create a file when it lets me. File, new, I'm just going to say website. Don't worry about any of this. I'm trying to remember a term that I can't remember right now. Well, yeah, web form site is fine. That'll work better anyway. I think it's called literal text, but I'm not positive. You're going to have to set up a shortcut to it, but if you go to click your start button and you go to all programs, it'll be in a folder called Microsoft Visual Studio 2013. You have to be in the virtual desktop. Okay, well, we'll take a look in a minute. It should be in there, though. Well, that's taking way too much time. So let me just go back. What I'm trying to tell you is, remember these? Remember labels? Right here? Well, there's something that you also have available to you in ASP.NET, and I think it's called just literal text, which means you don't even have to create a label. You can just start typing. So it's not really, it's just text. All right, some books recommend that you use that and not labels. Others recommend that you don't. I say that we should use labels just in the off chance that you might want to take some of that stuff and style it later, because it's much easier to style a label than it is literal text. There's a drop down, just a typical drop down. There's a text box, there's a text box, there's another label, and 2 buttons. All that makes sense? The idea is we want to put in here, this will be a drop down that'll be monthly investment, and I think it goes from 50 to 500 by increments of 50. 50, 100, 150, 200, etc., all the way up to 500. All right? Then you put an interest rate in here. You don't have to put for 6%. You don't have to put 0.06. You just put 6. That's the number of years. All of these could have also been done through drop down if we wanted to. All right, we click the calculate button. Boom. You might say, okay, that's all fine. Click clear. Of course, everything clears. But what I'll teach you, and I don't know if they show this early or not. I don't remember. But I'll also show you how we can do validation without writing any code. All right, so we'll create this, and we'll spend probably all period or most of the period on Thursday just working on this one. Okay, what I'll do is by then, I'll just create it again, brand new. It's out there on the system, but it's not going to help you any. I think you'll get a lot out of it not even looking at it first. But I'll take the completed project and I'll save it out there in the in-class folder. So if you have any problems, you can always look at that one and see where you might have had a problem. All right? So, does everybody understand what we'd be doing here? Does that all make sense? All right. So the files that are used by this. This is where I started to show you this. All right? When you create a new project, all right, or a new website in ASP.NET, it automatically calls the files you create. The first one is called default.aspx. The next one is default2.aspx, etc. You can change them, but and please listen to this. You don't have to look at me, but please listen to this. The time to rename things is when you create them. You run into all sorts of trouble for like when we start to create classes and stuff. When you create a class and then you change the name later, a lot of times you break your program because there's a bunch of files that are behind the scenes. They have that old name. And I've had people do that. Why doesn't this work anymore? That's why it doesn't work anymore. I'm just telling you. All right? So, when we create these, typically you'll have a default ASPX. Now, if you create them with C#, which is what we're doing, and we tell it to put the source code in a separate file, you get 2 files. Default.aspx and default.aspx.cs. So let's say I created this. Okay? I'm all done. I created this. But now I want to change the name. I don't want it to be default.aspx. I want it to be called future value. Everybody cool with that? I right mouse click on the ASPX file. That's the only one you can change. I right mouse click and I choose rename. And I type in future value. You should run the names together. Don't use underscores. Don't use anything. Just run it together as one word. As soon as you do that and you click OK, it'll automatically change the name of that one. Did you hear that? Just so you know. They're always kept in sync with one another. We'll create our own images folder, and that's where we'll put in that Muroc logo. That's the ping. That's the one that you see up here. This file, I could spend the whole period talking about it, but I'm going to spend instead about a minute. Web.config is the configuration of the website. Okay? When we run this program, let's say we wrote all this. We got it all done. Boom, boom, boom. We put in everything we wanted. Remember this? When we click that green arrow to run the program, you do it the same way. But it's going to come up the first time you do this, and it's going to say, do you want to run this program using debugging? Okay? You hear me? It's going to say that. If you say yes, then it goes into this web.config file, and it's got a flag in there that says debug equal false. It automatically changes it to true for you, and it never asks you that again. All right? If you don't care, you can type in no. Then every time you run it, it's going to ask the question again, but it won't change it. So your global website configurations are in your web.config file. Okay? It gets confusing because you can also create web.config files for each page that you have on your site. So you can have separate ones. So you can override, this would be all your global stuff, but if you want to override it locally, you can do that by having web config files on your own page. It's not done that often. We wouldn't do it much in this class. This is fairly complex, but you could. So they explain in here what the default ASPX file is, what the CS file, what the web config file, and what the JPEG is. Which is funny because they called it JPEG, but according to this, oh, I thought it was PNG. It is JPEG, sorry. Okay. So here's the code that you have to put in to make it work. So let's look at that code. You look at this. Wait a minute, Jeff. Wait a minute. This isn't code. Yeah, this is the ASPX part, not the ASPX.cs. This right here, every time you drag one of these controls on, this gets written for you. So what I'm telling you is literally 100% of what you see right here, all of it, every bit of it, you can write by just dragging controls over and changing stuff in the property window. Did you hear that? Okay. Let's see if this ever came back. It did. All right. So what is that called? It is literal. Remember I said it's called literal? I didn't know if it was literal or literal text. But notice that when we come up here, I want to close this. See where it says standard? And down here it says HTML. Everybody see these two? Anybody who doesn't see these two? Virtually everything we do will want to use standard. If you use HTML, I just want to show you quickly the difference between them. And that is, I'm going to come into design mode here. And I'm going to put in two buttons. First, I'm going to put in a standard button. I'm just literally going to drag a button into here. All right, see that button? A little bigger than I thought it'd be, but you get the idea. So that was a button from standard. Now I'm going to come down to HTML and I'm going to put in a button. Now they don't look identical. One's darker than, well, I guess they're, one's hot, you know, when you see that, they don't look identical, but they look very similar. Notice that when I go to design mode, come on, would you? Oh, I'm sorry, source mode. This is way too big. And I look at those two buttons. See how this one says run at equal server? That means it's a web control. It's not an HTML control. It's going to be rendered at the server side. See how this one doesn't say? It does not say run at equal server. Everybody cool with that? The other thing is, unlike HTML controls, please look up on the screen. Every single ASP.NET control must have an ID. You have to give it an ID. It's just a rule of the language. This would work fine, and we could remove the ID from this, and it would still work. The system doesn't care. You can't do it from here. And people have asked me this. What if I just came back in here, and I'm going to put that back in there. All right. And I just came back in, and I said, run at equal server. Does that mean that what I just did was I took that, and is it actually now a server? The answer is yes. But it's recommended that you don't do that. Just manually start adding things. It's recommended that you remove the one you have and add it the right way. Okay, I'm just telling you that. If you want to do it the other way, you can, but it's not recommended. All right. All right, let's finish up. I really quickly want to finish up this chapter. All right, so that's, you know what, that's just HTML. So here's the actual C code for it, or C# code. May or may not make sense. If not, is post back. What does that mean? Does that mean you want to post it back to the server? And remember this thing? I just showed you this picture before. True or false? Let's say that I'm running this. Let's get back to the one that we have. Okay, I'm running this. Every single time I click that down arrow, do I want that drop-down list to repopulate? Do I want it to have to re-put in there 50, 100, 150, 200, or do I want to put it in there once and have it be in there all the time? I'm asking you, which one? I don't want, if I want to put it in there once, I don't want it to change, right? If it's in there, I want to be happy with it, type of thing, so I don't want it to post back. So in English, the reason I'm telling you that, what they're saying right here in this code, is this the first time I'm populating the list? That's in English what this is saying. If it is the first time, then fill up that drop-down list with those amounts. Otherwise, it's already in there, so just skip it. All right? Then when I click the button, this is going to actually run through, and if I put validation in there, and if it's not valid, all right, I'm sorry, if it is valid, do all the conversions. Remember how we've talked about this in other languages? If you put something in a text box, technically it's a string. So what is this doing? This is converting what was in there into an int, converting what's in there to a decimal, converting to an int, converting. That's all it's doing. Then there's one function in here that's doing all the work. Now you may not, you actually should be able to look at this code. This isn't that different from the stuff we looked at yesterday. All right? And that's clearing. So again, I'm not saying you get every bit of it, but that's it. All right? Travis, maybe the rest of them have come out now, so if you don't mind again, I'd really appreciate it. So if you're not in the virtual desktop, please get into the virtual desktop. If you still have phpMyAdmin in, you can probably remove that. You can close out XAMPP if you want to. If you maybe you've already closed that, good if you have. Thank you. I'm not going to save this, so I'm just going to close. Now, I believe what Teresa, what she just told me, but I want to double check something with all of you, because if there's something missing, this is the time to find it, right? All right. So if you would all click, you're all in the virtual desktop, correct? All right. Click your start button and click where it says all programs. Do you have a folder about halfway down that says Microsoft? Where is it? Oh, it's just Visual Studio. I'm sorry. That says Visual. It's near the bottom then. That says Visual Studio 2013. Does everybody have that? So I told you wrong before. Sorry about that. So if you click on the hyperlink, I would suggest, again, right mouse clicking and dragging out a shortcut onto your desktop for Visual Studio. Otherwise, you're going to have to open it up this way all the time. It's up to you. But once you've done that, in fact, I don't have one, so I'll put one out there. All right, I've got it here, but I'm going to click Visual Studio, right mouse click, and drag it out there. And then choose Create Shortcut. There's my shortcut, Visual Studio 2013. I'm going to keep going until somebody says they're having a problem or you don't get something, okay? So double click on Visual Studio 2013. Mine's going to come up faster than yours. Again, yours is probably going to come up and ask you the language you want to use. It's a one-time shot. You'll want to choose, when it comes up, you'll want to choose the one that says C# on it. Okay? What's that? If you chose something else, it's not going to matter. There's even a way that you can go in through the options or the tools and you can reset it. All that's going to happen if you chose VB or something, whatever you chose, that's what it's going to come up with by default. Yeah, it won't hurt. And it'll take a minute or two. You know, you've went through this last year. Remember this? It's doing all of its internal settings and whatever. I'm not sure what it's doing. Eventually, if you don't look up here, what I'm going to do real quickly, okay, I'm going to give you time to work on this next class, but eventually what we're going to do is this. You've all got that, everybody's got that handout, right? Everybody has it? Okay. What we're going to eventually do is we're going to type in File, New, and here we'll choose Website. All right? So we'll choose Website. It'll come in here and it'll ask us the kind we want. If you choose Empty Website, the only thing it gives you is a web config file. That's it. We don't want that. We'll just choose the ASP.NET, all right, website. This is the time, if you look here, remember this? Look where it's trying to save this stuff by default. You see that? I don't want to go to D:\users, JScott documents, Visual Studio 20, etc. I don't want that. So I'm going to click Browse right here, and I'm just going to tell it to save it right to my desktop. All right, and click Open. Notice it changed to my desktop. Now, please look on the screen here. I don't care if yours is still working. Everybody look, even if you think you know this, and maybe you do. We always want to choose file system here. That's the default. That means you want to use the internal server. If you choose HTTP, the system assumes that you've got a full-blown version of IIS running on this machine, and that's how you're going to hook it up. If you choose FTP, it assumes that you're going to be sending this out to a server that's someplace else, and you're going to FTP your whole project over. Does that make sense? So we're using the internal one. So we want file system. So I'm going to click OK. Now it's going to come up and it says, I already got a folder on my desktop called that. So really, I'm going to call it test. Okay? Hopefully I don't have anything near called test. So it created it. So what did it just do? The reaction time on this is just really not good. All right. So I should, hopefully, on my desktop, I'm looking for a folder named test, and I don't see it. Oh, it didn't. I'm one up from the desktop. Remember I said desktop? So what it did was instead of putting it there, instead of putting it on my desktop, it put it up one level higher. So if I go here and I go to Jeff Scott, not there. Where was it? C:\users\J Scott. Is there something here called test? You know what? It'd be much easier to just do it the right way, so that's what I'm going to try to do. Oh, okay. Let's close this. So I will close the solution. File, new, website. All right. Now notice it's got users J Scott website. No, I don't want that. But what I should have done here is typed in desktop, then given a name for the project. So test. Okay. I want ASP.NET Forms website. Click OK. That's correct. It's creating the test project. Now that's what it should look like. That's not what I wanted. And now notice if I minimize this, I've got a folder named test. See that? That's what we want. What's in that folder? Wow, a whole boatload of garbage. All right. But notice there's a default ASPX and there's a default ASPX.cs. Those are the two files that we looked at before. Now, when I bring this up, that's just a directory listing. But when I bring it up inside of here, it shows me a lot of stuff, but they just created the project differently than I did. Don't worry about it. So there's a bunch of stuff already set up in here, and that's fine. All right. But notice we've got an about, we've got a whole bunch of stuff, and we'll look at this in the next class. But there's already a bunch of stuff that's been created for me. Notice if I run this, it created a project template for me. I want you to see this. So if you just choose a regular website, you know, this is what you're going to get. Like I said, but everything is really, really slow. All right. Not a whole heck of a lot, but notice there's an application name, there's a home page, there's an about page, and there's a contact page. All right. So what I really should have had you have done, if you already did it, don't worry about it. It doesn't hurt anything. But I'm going to close the solution again. Do you want to stop debugging? Yes, that's going to bug you too, but we'll talk about that later. I'm going to do File, New Website. This is what we really should do. Let's just create an empty website. So we'll start from scratch. So once yours comes up, do a File. If you already did that and you chose ASP.NET Web Form Site, just close the solution, start it up again. So it's File, File, New, Website. That's what we want. We don't want Project. Projects are meant to be run without the use. They're not server-side, basically. They're client-side. All right. So File, New, Website. All right. Once we click that, again, notice what it asks us. I don't want it this called Website 1. This is going to be our Future Value app. So under the desktop, I'm going to call it Future Value. All right. So make sure that you've got it so that the location is at your D drive users, your username desktop, and then add to that a backslash and something like future value. You can put blank spaces in these names. Don't do it because it can confuse the system. So just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. And I want to make sure when I do this again, I'm choosing empty website. Still choosing file system. So yours should be down here, D:\users / your username / desktop / future value. Any questions on that? And make sure you've chosen ASP.NET empty website. Otherwise, you're going to have to clean out a bunch of stuff you don't need. Are some people's machines still loading, or is everybody caught up? How many people are up to exactly where I am? Okay. Zach, you are? Okay. All right, so I'm going to click OK. Now notice what's in here. Like I said, there's a web config. There's nothing else in there. That's probably the best way to teach you how to do this. So what we want to do is we want to add a new web form. And how do we do that? We take our mouse and we put it right on the word future value like that. Right mouse click. And we choose add. All right. Once we choose add, we go to new item. So right mouse click on the name of the project, add new item. I'm trying to do this slow. Okay? And under add new item, what's the first thing that's there? Not the first. Well, we got HTML page, a lot of other stuff. What do we care about? Well, we actually do want this to be a web form. Don't worry about that. We want that to be a web form. That's the one we want to choose. Notice the name. Please look. Everybody agree? Default.aspx, which is kind of a stupid name. Why is it default? Because if you don't know this, the way that websites work is it's four-pronged process. The first thing it looks for in a website is index.html. Doesn't find that, it goes to index.htm. If it doesn't find that, it goes to default.html. If it doesn't find that, it goes to default.htm. If it doesn't find that, then it starts to look for index or default with a .php or a .aspx or whatever. So we could call this index. We're only going to have one page on here, so let's just call it what it is. And let's change it from default to future value. So we've got a future value.aspx inside of a future value project. Please look up on the screen here. You want to make sure that one is checked where it says place code in a separate file. If you don't, it'll only give you one file. You won't have that .cs file. And you say, well, can I just add it? Yeah, but the easiest way is to just remove that page and re-add it then if you forget to. We're not using master pages yet. If we were, we would click that. We're not, so we only want that one checked. Now when we click add, now notice what we have. We've got future value ASPX, and if we click the little arrow there, we also have future value ASPX.cs. And here's your file. And you look at that and you go, wait a minute, Jeff, there must be a mistake. That's just HTML. Yeah, for now, that's all that's in it. That's all. Do we keep that in there? I'm not even worried about that right now. I'm more worried that you get to that point. I do want to show you something that's kind of cool. This is me speaking, and this isn't in your book, but I just want to show this to you right now, okay? It's not a big thing, but for some reason, I didn't see it in this book, and maybe it was in there and I just didn't see it. Let's say that I come in here again. You don't have to do what I'm doing. So you come in here again, you right mouse click, you choose add, you choose new item. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to look and I'm going to say, I'm looking for it, but I don't see it. Style sheet. So it's going to make a CSS file, right? Okay. And so I'm going to tell it, yeah, just add a CSS file. And you can see where it put it. Okay, and it's going to let me start typing. So I can type whatever I want it to. Everybody cool with that? That's fine, right? Well, again, what I didn't see in this book is what you can do, because people get worried, you know, how do you put in that href and all that other stuff? You can take the name of the style sheet like this. No. You can take that name and just drag it right here, and it puts it in there for you. That's when you start to see some of the automation that's built into this. All right, and it's not that, is that a big thing? Not at all, but it's a big thing in that it starts to show you that a lot of this stuff is going to be automated for you. You have to still set it up, but then a lot of it will be dragging and dropping. So for the first 5 chapters or so of this class, we're not going to write a boatload of code. But you're going to be doing a lot of this type of stuff. All right? If I run this right now, again, I run this the same way that I would run it. You can do this. Just click that green button. And I want you to notice what happens. What does it do? It brings up a web page. What is this? That's a port number that it's associated with this machine. Yours won't be the same. In fact, if I said let's all read them off, we could easily have 10 different ones. And that's fine. And notice it's running future value.aspx. Why doesn't it show me anything? Because there's nothing in there yet. Right? Okay, so that's fine. It says forbidden. Anybody else get that? All right. We'll have to look at that. I don't know why that would happen, but we'll remind me of that. We'll do that first thing next class. All right. Now, the one thing about this, just so you know, what I'm going to do, please look up here. Okay, I'm going to go, and I can minimize right now and go back to my project. The problem is, when I try to start adding code and running it again, the program's still running. Did you all hear what I said? The program is still running. Because you'll forget to do it. Everybody does. So when this is up and you want to go back to your code, always close that. Doesn't sound like a big thing, but just remember to do it. That'll stop it automatically. All right. Yeah. Yeah, an even easier way, you're right, is to go to debug and just say stop debugging. That'll do both. You're right. That's a much better way. Thank you. You're right. All right. For right now, let's just say I don't need, I don't know if I'm going to need any of this stuff in here or not. I don't know. Guess what? I don't care. So I'm just going to get to the bottom of it right here. I'm going to go right to the bottom. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at that piece of paper. I don't want to go back to that, but I'm going to go to that piece of paper. What am I going to do? Well, as I said to you before, I want to use the standard controls. And I want to find first an image control. And I'm just going to drag it in here. There's an image control. Okay? Boom. So I'm going to come in here. Then underneath that, what do I want? Well, I wanted an H1 tag, and now I don't have room for it anymore. So you know what I'm going to do? I'll just put it up here someplace. In fact, I'll put right here. H1 401k future value calculator. Calculator. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to come down here. Unrecognized tag or prefix. I'm not worried about that, but hopefully that'll fix itself up later. And if it doesn't, we'll have to figure out what it is. All right. So I've got that image control. Now I want to come in and I want to add a couple labels. I'm going to put a label here. And that label, what does it say? It says monthly. You see where this is kind of a pain in the butt right here, what I'm doing? Did everybody see this? It's kind of a pain. So notice on the bottom, please look here. It says source and it says design. Instead of being in source mode like I am, I'm going to go to design mode. Because then I get a picture of everything I'm working on as I do it. But I wanted to show you that because some people prefer to work from design mode. Some people prefer to work from source mode. All right? And then Zach raises his hand and he says, I prefer to work from both modes. Then you click split and you get to do it both ways. So you can either work and just see the picture, just see the code, or see them both. And you can add controls either way. You can drag them in to your source mode. You can drag them into your design mode. What I like to do is when I'm building an interface like this, again, this is me. You may totally disagree, which is fine. I like to come in here. I'm going to throw in now a text box. I hit the space bar a couple times first. I'm going to hit enter. I'll hit it a couple times. Throw in another label. Hit the space bar a couple times. That's interesting. But that's the image control right there. So I should move that down a little bit. But that's either way, it's fine. It's not going to matter. All right. Put in another text box. All right, one more time. It looked like the first one should have been a drop down. We'll fix that later. Put in another label. Put in another text box. Since that one should have been a drop down, I'll get rid of that label and put in a drop down list, which is what it should have been to begin with. Okay. So I've got those two. I need one more label down here. And this one, even though it doesn't look like it, is actually another label, I believe. So I'm going to put that there for the answer. And then I need two buttons. So button, button. Okay? Now, I'm asking this. This is not a joke. I'm asking this. Is there anything there that I just did that anybody doesn't understand? Could everybody else in there build that interface? Okay? Because I want to make sure that you have that interface built next class, and don't worry, just have that image control in there. Don't worry about putting the image in. We'll do that next class. But I want you to have the interface built by next class. Is that asking too much of you? All right, do that. I'll have it built also. There'll be a folder when you get in here on Thursday that will be entitled 08-21-2014. That folder will have two folders in it. It'll have one that'll say before, and it'll look basically just like this with a before picture, just the interface built, but no code, and the other one that will say after. But if you have the interface built, we can concentrate on the code, which I think is more important anyway. And then I'll give, if we can do that and everybody has it done, hopefully we can get the code done in the first hour. Then I want to give you the second hour to play with this, to try some different stuff and see what happens. Does that sound like a plan? All right. All right. Was it Andrew? You didn't get it, or you had a question, or? Okay. Okay. Again, I screwed up here. This right here, that's that image control. That's why these things are stuck together. Notice if I go back into, for me it's easier to go back to source mode. I'm going to just put a BR tag in there. I'm going to manually put in a BR tag. Notice when I go back to design mode, see how it's moved? And if it really bugs you and you go, oh, I want to be able to put that image in there, then you're going to have to go out on the P drive where I gave you the projects, and you're going to have to unzip that. And once you do that, you're going to have, what you want to do, please look up on the screen here. We also want to right mouse click like we did before. Right mouse click, choose add, but this time we want to choose new folder, and we want to put in a new folder that's called images, and we'll put our image in the image folder. I will also suggest, please look on the screen, I wouldn't take and have a CSS file just hanging there like that. I would also, you probably haven't even created it yet, which is fine. I would also right mouse click, choose add, choose new folder, and choose, call it something like, typically they're called styles. S-T-Y-L-E-S. Okay. Now I can take this, I can right mouse click on it, I can cut it, and I can paste it back in there. Notice it went back up. Of course, you got to cut and paste the right file. So let me cut that again. Let me paste it right in here. There it's back. Let me cut this one, and let me paste it inside of styles. Okay, so it's easy to move stuff around. But if this bugs you, again, you can go out and find that image, and then once you do that, when you go to the image control, so when we actually go to it, all right, there's nothing in there right now, but notice that if I come back here and I go to my future value ASPX and I click on the image control and I go over to properties down here, there is a property that is called image URL, and that's where you have to set the URL. Once you do that, it'll put that, if you put Muroc, if you don't like that, if Travis wants to have, Travis's loan agency, you can make your own. Or you can grab any, don't grab a super humongous thing in there, because then you'll have to resize it. If you want to grab yourself a small PNG file or JPEG, just put it in there. All right, I'll have all this stuff available for you then on Thursday. So what we've got right now, I'm going to save this. Save all. I recommend save all and not save. I'm going to run it again. So see what we have? It's not pretty. And right now I didn't put the actual label text in, etc. But what I'll do is I'll take that one that's right there, and I will save that out to that folder that I just made. I'll save that folder out to today's stuff. So if you had any problems and you want to look at that, you can. All right? But I'll have the whole thing built for you with and without code by the time we get in here on Thursday. So we're going to go right into the code. Boom. Have this up on Thursday. All right? Whatever one you created, we're going to come in and start writing code right away. Yes? Okay. Okay. Any questions? All right. That's all that I had. No, you had your chance. No, you had your chance. I said, are there any questions? You did not raise your hand. Now you have to ask a lab assistant. No, just kidding. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. That's not true. By default, it expects it to be in there. You can literally give it. You can give it like a full URL if you wanted to. Yes. Not recommended. It's recommended that you have an images folder and you do everything locally, because you've got much more control over it then. And if you're using somebody else's file, you're not going to be able to go in there and change the width and change the height and whatever, because you're grabbing it off a website. So you're always best off copying it into a folder like images. Right? So I've got this thing. This is future value right here. So I'm grabbing it, right mouse clicking, going to copy, and putting it out on the P drive. Again, it's way, 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 way far from complete, but it's a start. In class, and I'll make a folder with today's date on it, 08-19-2014, and I'll drop that in. There it is. All right, so if that helps. I'd rather have you do your own. I think you get a lot more out of it doing it by yourself. And just so you know, I'm going to give you assignments. You won't have as many assignments as the class had last semester because all we did was the book. So where I would give them 2, I'll probably give you 1. First assignment or 2 we'll probably do as a class. I still want you to do them. I still want them in a completed folder. And please, you all hopefully all remember this from last semester, but especially the new people in here, whether you're in this class or not, I can't get to your virtual desktop. It's your virtual desktop. So if Kelly says, I got it done, Jeff, and I look in Kelly's H drive, which I can get to, and it's not there, it ain't done. So I can get to your H drives, but I can't get to your virtual desktops. And also, I said this yesterday, but you may not have been in that class. This is a desktop. So anything that you're working on that you want to save, you save it out to your H drive. If you don't do that, and sometimes the desktop just goes to hell. And if that happens, I have to call Terry. He has to reinstall it. When he reinstalls it, you lose everything that's on it. So you've been told. It's on tape. So there's no, I can't tell it to you any more than that.